Hello and welcome to podcast 369 of 5-Star Potential, your weekly Football Manager podcast. I'm Duke, and on this week's pod, not only am I joined by Paul, aka Mad FM, and Dave, aka Dave Azzopardi, we are delighted to welcome a very special guest this week. Fresh from his exploits at the recent FIFAe World Cup featuring Football Manager, welcome back to the pod, Matt, aka SecondYellowCard. Great to have you back, Matt. How are you? Are you well?
Yeah, just kind of knackered basically after what's been a pretty wild last 9-10 days.
Well, I mean, we're very excited to hear. We'll get on to that in a second. So on this week's pod, of course, we're going to be talking to Matt all about that amazing FIFAe World Cup, which took place at the last weekend, as well as chatting to him about his FM24 adventures and impressions of the game overall. We also had a big development update from Sports Interactive in relation to FM25, which dropped on the day of this recording. So that should be interesting to have our early reactions to that. Also, that massive news about the release date on that. So we'll get through that very, very quickly. But before we crack on, we need to check in with everybody, make sure we're all good. And also, we need to explain about something that's happened with me and Mad about a Champions League. But we'll get there very soon. How is everybody? Are we all good? Winners, losers? Just a quick one this week. Apart from me by winning the Champions League. Oh, spoiler.
I mean, may as well talk about it now you've dropped it.
Oh, do you want to talk about? Oh, we can talk.
I was
about
there.
It now.
I witnessed it, mate. So
yeah, Matt, just to kind of bring you up to speed, mate. Because I don't know if you know, but me and Mad had a bit of a verbal going through. Mad took some random team from the best team in Sweden, wasn't it, Matt?
No,
Mad. Was it the best team?
They were after I was finished with them. Let's go.
Yeah, he took them. Very boastfully said that he could win the Champions League, and then did you win? You didn't win it, did you? No, sorry, I get confused sometimes. And then I took a very small local town to me, Cirencester Town, from step 8 in the football pyramid, all the way to the Champions League final, and we lost it. And the next season, in front of Mr. Azzopardi, we played Inter Milan. After talking about it on last week's pod, talking about how we went and scouted them, worked out how they were going to play, we actually adapted for the first time. The whole save adapted to change our way, because normally I like to just go out and beat teams as best as I can. And in extra time, we won 4-2, Mad, and we lifted the Champions League trophy. Thanks, Dave. I can hear the clap.
He did tag me several times on Discord. I am aware of this information. I do know that it happened. Mad, you're fucked. Mad, are you watching? Mad, look.
The interesting thing is everything that I did and I spoke about in the previous pod, talking about actually not being possession based, letting them have the ball and then breaking them on the counter. We had 22 shots and we had 39% possession, which is our whole saves lowest. I think. From kind of like based on our averages, it's way below what we're used to. So it was a massive win for me. So yeah, Matt. I mean, you can say you're sorry, or you can just cry. It's up to you. You can do it however you want.
Did you? Sorry, you won the Champions League final offline. Is that what you said? You weren't streaming?
No, I did it as my normal stream. I had the same amount of viewers as normal, and as a party watched.
yeah, man.
So so it's more like it's more like the time you lads played each other in the network save, and one of you let the other one win, or something. There's something there. Yeah. Okay.
I watched the game.
Dave literally watched the game.
I did. Although it wasn't in the middle of extra time when I started watching, but
the third game. And the fourth game.
Yeah.
You're taking only fan to a new meaning here. Just
you said you've always wanted me on there. Anyway, let's go to something a bit more serious. Matt.
Well done.
Have you got a save on the go? You've been playing somewhere cool? Some little country somewhere?
I dabble in a bit of Malta. I've got a cheeky little Malta save going on. It's gone pretty well, actually. We're 24 seasons in now. It's been a bit of a slog, honestly. But finally, after 22 of those seasons, finally managed to win the damn Champions League. A lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, hang on. Sorry. So you've won the Champions League?
I have won the Champions League twice.
Dave, you've won the Champions League in your Penty.
Yeah.
I've won the Champions League in my save. Mad.
I should have pulled a sickie on this podcast.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matt. Go on, carry on. Talk us about it.
No. I'm glad just for that alone. It's It's been a wild ride because obviously trying to build a nation and whatnot, but winning the Champions League is a pretty integral part of that. And the fact that it took 22 years was somewhat surprising, but I just kept getting hit with the same stuff every single time. It was batter the opposition, concede their only shot. Batter the opposition, concede their only shot. It would always be that one game that would knock you out every single season. But then, I don't know, something just happened and then we won the Champions League and then we went unbeaten since then and then won the next Champions League and now we're 103 games unbeaten in all competitions and it's just like impossible to lose, apparently.
Amazing. You've just gone so far. It's just tipped.
Who are you managing, Matt, in Malta? Yeah. To be honest, obviously, I was aware you were managing in Malta, but for whatever reason, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to anyone in the FM community, other than doing the pod and my own save, I very rarely have a chance to catch with people's saves or anything. Who are you managing over there? Have you been with the same team throughout, I assume?
Yeah, so we started for the whole save with the same club. We've been managing Sirens up in St. Paul's Bay. So like not one of the top teams in Malta, but like a top flight side. I mean, not anymore because they got relegated, but you know, we don't talk about that. Technically, at the start of the save file, they are a top flight side.
No, that's
so
nice.
How have Malta been getting on as a nation as well? Are they grown massively?
Well, I mean, the national team just kind of gets like all the Brazilian players that come over to sign for the Maltese clubs and they declare for them. So they did actually qualify for the Euros on their own back, which was pretty dope, considering I've not been managing them. I've just been doing Malta building things, but they've signed so many players that eventually some of them just don't declare for their nations and declare for Malta instead. So they did enough to get quite a lucky group in Euros qualifying and did actually get to the Euros, which was mad.
Yeah, never qualified before in real life.
Not a chance.
Never World Cup or Euros. They're sort of doing that at the moment. I think, you know, there's players that I think they're very quickly cottoning on that they've got Maltese relatives like Jody Jones, who plays in England, who's a good player, who's part of the national team. And a lot of the African players coming into Malta are starting to declare as well. So be interesting. I don't think anytime soon they'll qualify, to be honest. And I think, is it, I don't know if that how they did on your side or how they started. Is it Hammer and Spartans had a little bit of money pumped into them in real life as well? But I don't know how they've got on as well.
So generally speaking, I mean, in this save, Hamron are one of the better sides, and usually, you know, in weird saves like this in the small leagues, they can sort of go all over the place, the big teams. But like in this one, Hamron have kind of stuck up towards the top. So generally, now that we've got like many teams in Europe, so we've got obviously 7, we've got 4 in the Champions League, etc., etc. So it's like Hamron and Sweetie United and Goodyear United seem to be the ones that are in the Champions League. Then you've got like Birkirkara, Hibernians, and like Slima Wanderers, and who play on a shopping centre, I've been informed. Those kind of teams that are sort of just barely getting into Europe and can't imagine bringing Real Madrid to the shopping centre.
That's literally what West Ham do, though, to be fair.
True.
Have there been any stadiums built, or are they still playing at the national stadium?
Loads. So originally when we got into Europe, everybody was just sharing to Ali, but now like Hamron Stadium's 21,000. Sweetie have got a 13,000 seater. We're getting a new 36,000.
This is not realistic at all, by the way, because there's no chance they would fit any of these. They would not fit any of these people. That is crazy.
No, exactly. Like when I went to Malta to see a Sirens game, we watched it at the Centenary Stadium, which was just across the road from Ta'ali. It just seemed like there was one car park, and it was just every single stadium served by the same car park.
Yeah, I've been to the National Stadium. I've never watched a game there. I went to watch it. I have watched the Maltese Premier League game years ago, but I don't even know what ground it was. Just one stand, and then the
that probably was the one I went to actually.
Yeah,
it was just one stand with like half a roof.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. But no, and in terms of money being spent, in terms of transfer budgets, what sort of thing is that looking like?
Most of it's being financed by us, in the sense that we're having to sort of finance our incomings by making huge sales. So we went through a weird thing where all of our player values randomly dropped through the floor because, you know, Football Manager's a totally well-balanced game, where that's totally just the thing that can happen. So all of our players that were worth 80 million were then worth like 500k, which of course then decimates you because you can't sell anybody for any money.
Wow.
And so that kind of lasted for like 3 years and then it bounced back up again. So we just had to really kind of stay on FFP and try to balance the books through that whole period. But now it's like we're working with like £100 million transfer budget, and some of the other clubs have got like 40 million now because we've got 300 players out on loan. So it really boosts up the other squad of the other teams in our league, and we can just keep hopefully bringing them to European glory. We've had Sweet United have been in 2 Europa League finals.
Wow, I love that, man. That's brilliant.
Serious. This is Dave. Like Dave is living for this.
I've tried to manage in Malta before.
You just watched it, Dave. You know what I mean?
I managed in Malta FM 15 or 16, and who was I then? Tarshin Rainbows. I downloaded.
Oh, Tarshin Rainbows, yes.
Yeah. And there was a guy I had called Mohamed Solly. He was a French guy. He was unbelievable. And I think I played Celtic, I think, in like a European qualifiers, but that's as far as I got. And it was like the end of the game, so I got them. But I enjoyed that. I really love that save.
It's such a fun league. The team names alone make it worthwhile, like Tarshin Rainbows.
Yeah.
Getting the vibes here from Malta. Maltese New Jens, Matt, I'd love to hear about as well, because I don't know if you know this, right? So maybe now that you're an icon of Maltese football and you've got a lot more sway in the FM world than Dave ever will, because you might not know this. Dave has his own New Gen in Football Manager every year. And it's his lifelong ambition to get Maltese as a second nationality.
They still haven't done it. I need to speak to FM.
Maybe you can get it done for him, Matt, because you're now an icon. But have you seen any Maltese New Gens that are likely to be better than any of the Dave as a party New Gens we've ever seen?
One. Like we got a lot of Azapardies in our youth intakes. A lot of Azapardies and Borgs. But no Dave had a party so far, weirdly. Believe me, if there was one, I would have signed him. We had this one guy called Matthew Side, who I'm convinced has got like 150 PA. Because he's like 3-star PA, 3-star CA in our current team, which is like a Champions League winning team. And he's got like 90 caps for Malta, has been captain them for years. Never actually played for us because he was not quite good enough for our first team, but loaned out to Goodyear and then signed for them permanently. But he's like next level quality. But he's one of those random outliers you get from the really low youth level countries. And we were just lucky enough to get him in our youth intake. So we got Matthew Side.
Oh, I wish there was more. I need to speak to FM again to see if they can help me with that. But I suppose if you're a face in the game, they might not add that on. I don't know.
They don't want to make you any more overpowered. Those things are so overpowered.
Yeah, I've never had one a save where my New Gen's been any good, Matt. Apart from this year on my Pentagon, I've still not managed him on my Pentagon. He's England's best left back and played for Real Madrid his whole career. So I've played against him.
I've signed you several times and you've been great.
Yeah, I've played against him in game, but I haven't signed him yet. To be fair, recently I've totally forgot he's still in game, so I have to have a look. He's probably well into his 30s now. I might be able to
you remind yourself of that every single day, Dave. You think about it all the time. I signed him at Cirencester.
He wasn't very good.
Well, I say I signed him. I had him on a free because nobody really wanted him. And then I loaned him to Barnsley because he got on my nerves. And I thought Barnsley would have been a good place to loan him out. And then he moaned about being in Barnsley. So I sent him to Aberdeen. I thought that would probably be even worse. And now he's at Derry City. So, yeah, he's great in my save. But he did play like over 45 games for Cirencester Town in the Premier League when we first got there. And across the 2 seasons, he averaged a 6.63. Both seasons, identical.
I might be a quiz question.
Bang average.
Cirencester fans. I might be a quiz question.
Very consistent.
You probably won't, but yeah. I mean, it says here that he's 6 foot, which is a lie.
Definitely.
It also says his weight, which is kind of relevant to what we're going to talk about today. Is 14 stone 2, which again is a lie.
It wasn't the Irish as well, no?
He's Irish on this one, yeah.
Definitely wrong.
He's one of Mad's boys. And it says here likes to wind up opposition. No,
typical.
He's got no banter in him, so you never know. There might be a chance, Dave. So is it something that you've made a conscious thing to not manage the national team, or did you get on to say that you are now managing and you're going to try and take them? Or
so it was. It's one of the things with building a nations where, because I'm not really bothered about what the national team does, I'm more trying to build the league up. That I've never really been that bothered about it. Particularly in a lot of the nations, they're already reasonably solid national teams. Like Hungary actually have some solid players. Republic of Ireland and my save had tons of good players because a lot of them come through at Man United and Liverpool often, as well as like Dundalk and Sligo and teams like that. So this is the first nation I've done where their national team is somewhat underpowered, you might say. So I've started to care about it a bit more, but like we still didn't want to manage them. But when they got to the Euros, I was like, right, okay, step aside and we're going to manage them there. And obviously we lost every single game in the group stage and conceded literally one of the worst own goals I've ever seen. But that happens, right? But that's the only time I've ever wanted to manage them. Yeah, it was horrendous. Yeah. Just edge of the area, player passes it straight into his own goal. Because of course he does.
It did happen once in a game in 1952, to be fair. So.
Indeed. I mean, it happened to us in the World Cup this weekend as well, but that's a different point. It's just, yeah. So, no, it's not really one of those things I've really focused on. I prefer just building up the league. I find if you manage the national team, it just slows things down too much.
See, I'll be honest with you. My save next year, kind of peek behind the curtain, is going to be a builder nation. And I've probably picked one of the worst football nations in the world. And I just feel that the way I've kind of done my research and looked into it, I'd have thought that it would have helped support the rep and kind of speed things up. it's quite really interesting. You're saying it's slowing things down. Is that because you are doing that extra gameplay rather than the reap? You're not really reaping that reward, rather.
Yeah, I don't think it. The only benefit I can see from it is that by giving caps to players, you could potentially boost their reputations themselves because they're international footballers. But I don't know how much of an effect it would have on the club's reputations and enable them to sign anyone different. If anything, it might actually boost the players' rep to the point where the club would have to sell them, or as they become more interested in that. But that's the reason I've not really paid too much attention to it. And as you say, like with managing those games, it does just slow down the progress. Because at the stage I'm at now, I'm basically instant resulting any game that isn't Champions League, because that way you just get through things so much faster.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, even if I wanted to, I'm not allowed to anymore, which is probably a really good segue into what we're going to discuss next. We will get on to the FIFAe World Cup. That's kind of the main reason why Matt's here. But the development update has dropped. And as mentioned earlier, on the day of this recording, kind of out of the blue, Miles has dropped to yet another FM25 development update blog. The link's down in the description if Dave remembers. Dave, did you remember all the links last week?
I did, mate. FPL and your donation link. So,
just to mention my donation link again, you can go donate because next week I will be doing an ultra marathon, as we discussed earlier, and Matt thinks I'm fucking crazy. And there's the first swear of the day. But yes, so we have to talk about this because it'd be stupid not to. But the biggest takeaway from the FM25 looks to be set to be delayed by a few weeks, which I'll be honest, I'm probably one of the only people that's happy about that. I'm actually due to be in Kenya on the normal update when it's out. So the fact it's at the end of November, that'd be fantastic for me. We also hear about changes to relation to international management, player profiles, and testing for the FMFC members. So who wants to start? Who wants to give us our opinion on the delay or international management or anything of the above?
I'd be curious to know if anyone's like deeply bothered or mad about the delay. You know, and Matt, I might look at you for this, you know, because obviously it's something you do a lot of, right, every year, and it's a big date in the calendar. There will be a lot of people who are like, oh, it's late, and then they might interpret that as to, oh, it's going to be buggy and problems. But does a couple of weeks make a huge difference? That's an interesting one.
Nah, not for me. Like that's the one thing in there that I'm just like, no, I totally understand that. If anything, I'm glad, because I'd rather have a game come out a couple of weeks late, or even like 3 or 4 weeks late, and be good, than come 3 or 4 weeks early and be unplayable for 3 or 4 weeks. Like, to me, that's just, I was expecting it, honestly. I'd heard rumblings and I just figured that's likely to happen. And you know what? Screw it. That's a good thing, I say. That's the thing in there that I'm like totally on board with. Take your time, make it good, right? That's all we really want, right?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed last week about potentially the three of us starting a network save, talking about it on the pod, etc., and saying, oh, we'd only get one season. Now we'll get 2. Look at that. So it means Mad can get relegated and then come back up again. So fair play. You know, it'd be a nice redemption story in that. I'm just going to echo exactly what Matt said there. Like, I definitely think that rushing shit out is just not going to help anything. We do have quite a reactionary community that's very quick to jump on the bang, this isn't good. But actually, when you take a step back, I think it is. You know, I really think it's a positive thing because, you know, the feedback is that we now know it's going to be late. So we've now set our expectations to it's going to be late. If the game come out on day one and people were moaning and they're going, it's buggy, they should have just delayed it. Hang on, that's probably the same people that's moaning that it's delayed now. So I think, yeah, what's the worst that can happen? And plus, I'm away, so I'm happy as Larry. But international management now. No international management. Are we upset about no international management? I just said about building a nation and I wanted to include it in my save. So I'm a bit...
I think Football Manager, they've pretty much made out it will return, but just not for this edition of the game. I've seen people, and I don't know if it's just my Twitter feed, going mad about this. And I'm sure the percentages of people that actually use and play international management, it's minute. It's really small, and I don't know. I don't think you're missing much. I genuinely don't think there's much missing. You know, it was such a basic part of the game. People complain that they should have added more to international management, but you know, I can't see this being a major issue. You know, and like I said, if they can't get it to work and be a big part of this the new style game that they want to release next year, let it breathe for 12 months, let them get it perfect, and then reintroduce it for FM26.
So do we think when you say international management, and especially I think it was 5.6% they said of the population actually.
That's higher than I thought as well, though. To be fair.
Well, do you think that means someone who starts a career, starts a new save as an international team versus what we talked about in Matt Save, where you manage for 9 seasons or 15 seasons and you get the international job organically within that? Do you think it's both with that percentage and or both when it's not going to be available? So if you do a save for 20 seasons, I will not get the Ireland job. Is that where we are?
I reckon it's someone that's managed a nation full stop. Because I think 5%, if you were starting a save as an international manager, I still think 5% sounds high. I do. So I reckon it's anyone that's managed a nation throughout any save. In my opinion, I don't know what you lot think.
It's probably a bit, but yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it has to be anyone who's used it throughout the save. I suppose when it's easy to think for them to say things like only 5% of people use it, but then at the same time, it's like if it was better, more people would use it. So it's kind of chicken and egg kind of situation.
That was the argument with network saves, wasn't it? It's always been the argument with network saves.
And I think the problem they've got here, because I obviously love international football and I've always wanted it to be improved. And so I'm disappointed to see it go just because it's like you're tearing more and more things out of it until at what point do you stop and go, hey, what we've got's really good, but there's nothing left of it. And it does make you a bit concerned when you just keep seeing more and more things taken away and not anything added in, especially when it comes to women's football being added this year, with international women's football being sort of the pinnacle of it, obviously, but more so than men's football in some ways. I feel like that's one of the main ways that people sort of watch women's football at the moment is still through the international tournaments. I mean, I know that's the most common way I watch it, just because Fulham don't have a WSL team or anything like that. So I feel like it's interesting that that's gone in the same year that women's football is in there, given how important those two things are together.
Yeah,
100%.
It's probably this year, if they were going to do it or wanted to take it out for 12 months, this year is probably the right year, though, because no international tournaments this summer coming at the end of the year. This is probably the year they're going to do it. So if they can perfect it, then brilliant. But I have seen a few people concerned that every sort of communication that we've seen about the new game is them almost taking things away, pretty much, rather than adding big, shiny new features. I mean, the only thing we've seen really is the new user interface. And other than that, we've not seen a fat lot just yet.
But I totally agree with what Matt was saying about the fact that international women's football was what got me into watching women's football.
Sure.
I've now actually gone to a women's game and I watched the FA Cup final. Yes, okay, my team that I follow was in it, but still, I was able to take the boys there. That was their first. It was Lucas, my youngest, his first ever game was the women's FA Cup final. And fast forward to we're talking about there's no international competitions this year. It's the women's Euros this year at the end of the season. So it's in that game cycle again. It just seems like such a big missed opportunity where the amount of references to the American women's team with the Chelsea lady going, Emma Hayes going over. All this is just so massive in the news, and yet it just seems such a shame that they've taken it out. And it's a really good introduction to women's football. If you're going to start wanting to manage in women's football, the Euros on. Let's take the women's football Euros, the England team, if or whatever, and see what we can do with them. And that then gets you that taste of it, and you go, actually, we'll now go and manage so and so and so and so.
And like the takeaway might be that they've been doing a lot of it's been a few years where people have complained about international management and it's not been great. Like Matt said, if it was better, more people would have already been using it. It might suggest that they are overhauling it completely and it's just not going to be ready. And maybe it's just not a case of, well, let's just put it in like it used to be because we're in a brand new game. So if you were to take positives, because I know we're feeling like they're taking a lot of things away, maybe it suggests that, when it does come, and let's say if it comes in FM 26 or whatever, that it's actually going to be radical. And if that's the case, it's enough to probably keep people happy, especially those who will miss it and do want it there and will want to actually play it in its new look.
Just to play devil's advocate, though, and obviously a few of us have mentioned now that we enjoy it and we'd like to see it be better. And I find it quite difficult to see how you would make it better, because it is very similar to what international football is like. You're kind of absent for 4 weeks and then you're involved in that. And I think you're right. It has to come back with a bit of a bang, and bang, this is a new feature that, that we've improved it. But it's not an easy thing to improve. Is kind of where I'm going with that, because it is pretty much been the same. And but then again, people change is good, and it should be the way. But it will be really disappointing if they take it away and it comes back next year and it's exactly the same because they've gone, actually, that we couldn't do much more with it, So hopefully they've got a lovely...
Remember this moment. Remember this moment.
Timestamp it. Timestamp it. I hate to
Set
say
the
it, I
alarm.
told you so. So the only kind of other big thing that they mentioned in the article was about the fact of changes to the player profiles. Now, what's your thoughts on this? The fact that the player weights are now going to disappear. It's going to be hidden in the background, but it's not going to be something that's on screen that we can see.
It's a strange thing to bring up in a development blog, I must say. I'm not fussed either way. I can't remember the last time I looked at a player's weight anyway. I'm more interested in their height because a player's weight, generally speaking, they're professional athletes. So I'm looking at their attributes, and to me, weight is sort of irrelevant to that. It did seem like an odd thing to put in the. You could have just literally left it out of the game, and I don't think anyone would have noticed immediately. And even when they had, they'd have gone, "Oh, okay, fair enough." It seemed like an odd thing to make such a big deal out of, I suppose. And I think almost people's reactions has been disproportionate in the same way that it was disproportionately put into that post. But it's also weird that it's still in the background. We're just not showing it. Why not just take it out of the background then? Why does it need to exist at all then if it's not a bit? It just seems someone's going to make a skin that puts it back in again anyway, straight away, right?
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, it will.
It's just very strange.
It's a strange thing to mention. As a researcher, yes, you will put it in the game, and maybe that's something for them to know. But like you said, I don't think Joe Blogs needs to know all about that. It is a strange thing, or that's the sort of thing you would put on any other features, or right at the bottom of the article. Oh, we're going to be removing weight because of this, but you don't make that as a headline feature as such that you're removing weight.
It's like a changelog item.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Would you think it's done? Like, 'cause I don't remember when it wasn't there. Like, it's been there since the old days, right? As when they've had that level of detail.
You're the one to tell us. We're so young compared to you.
Oh, don't start. You already had to go on me last week about the grey hairdo, but I still haven't gotten over that. I've got some more since that. But what do we think it actually does in game, even if it's in the back end? You understand strength, you understand height.
It's probably a visible thing, match engine thing as well, to be fair.
It's also surely it's going to affect your physical attributes. It's going to limit to how much you can actually hit and peak when it comes to acceleration.
Spend more money on diesel when you're going to away games.
Yeah. I think probably one of the main reasons, by the way,
you get to eat for free at the Heart Attack Grill in Las Vegas.
just reading the actual blog post, I think one of the reasons it's been made clear is because a lot of it is pointed towards the women's football when you actually read the article in regards to obviously their body types and so on this Marsley's words are very different to men's. So that's probably one of the main reasons he's pointed it out as a big feature is because of the women's football. That's one of the main reasons it's been taken out of the game.
Yeah, I can see that logic, but at the same time, I'm also like, they're professional athletes, so it's not like these women are in incredible shape. Now I realise that women are often body shamed, but it's weird that you would suddenly put that protection in now, and it's like, are men not body shamed too? It's a weird sort of.
I've never done that on FM. When looking at a player, I've never looked at it and thought, "Fucking, he's too heavy. I'm not sorry." It's just not a thing, is it? It's just not.
The only thing I wonder is whether there is something in the background that adds the weight into a formula which works out your limitations on that physical attribute, and they can't get that to balance with the women's side of the game with all that jazz for whatever reason. I have no idea, and I wonder whether it's just easier to kind of say it's in the background, but actually it probably isn't gonna. It's in the background, but they're not actually affecting that formula, and I wonder whether that's the way they've kind of gone about it, because you can put your weight in, and as a manager, you can make yourself as big as me, if you want to, you have that ability. But it's like, I don't understand it. I understand that there's a principle of why it's been done, but I don't understand why you make a song and dance about it, to be perfectly honest.
They have indicated that it's to do with how it changes, right? They mentioned like the male versus female, like the frequency by which, so maybe that's just something that just it's just too much hassle, and for, like we said, if it doesn't really impact much, just
no one care in 3 weeks.
Sleep over.
I mean, I poo 3 times a day, so my weight fluctuates massively. And you'll be surprised that isn't the only toilet gag I'm going to come up with today. So we'll come up with another one very short. Okay, well, let's move on to the FIFAe World Cup featuring Football Manager, which is the main spotlight of today's pod, which is one of the main reasons why we did ask wonderful Matt to come on. Sorry?
I was giving him a little cheer because we're actually talking about why
I didn't know what that noise was then.
I got really confused. I'm glad
like a tiny gun.
Excited.
You.
Okay, you just sounded like one of the guns from the Star Wars or whatever it is from those. Anyway, we will just professionally move on. So it's a first of its kind tournament featuring competitors from all over the world and some famous faces thrown in for some good measure. Rather than me attempt to talk through it all, let's get it straight from the man who not only competed in it, represented England at a tournament, who, along with another friend of the pod, Aaron, aka RDF Tactics, went all the way to the semi-final. Sorry, spoilers. So, Matt, if you don't mind, just talk us through it, if it's okay with you. You were involved very early on. You are now the third bloke I've seen sat on a toilet. And you can talk to us all about it and how it come about. And you can also guess the other two if you wish.
Oh, I'd love to.
We're right here. We're right here.
That's good. Oh, well, that does kind of explain it, actually.
It's not
it was
those
just. Well, now I'm really curious.
Wait, have I missed the toilet joke here? What? Am I missing something in?
He's going to tell us.
Do you watch anything that Matt's in?
If I was in Malta, I'd have watched it.
Yeah, sorry.
So when they did the announcements, when they were doing some of the press release, there was a video of Matt sat on the toilet doing a press conference.
Oh, okay.
And then that kind of like it cut to behind the scenes, and there's just Matt sat on the toilet.
Oh, okay, I've got you.
It's like the press background above the cistern, basically, and then
Matt,
is
you've
there
got
in
the
his
link
packs,
to the whole of Matt's CV and all the work that he's done over the last 12 months that you're meant to watch, read, and listen before he comes on.
Epic fail.
So, Matt,
I've never done a podcast
apologize,
before,
mate. I really do
In my
apologize.
defense, I wouldn't want to watch it either. I don't blame you, Dave. It was the weirdest thing. So I finished stream one day and I got a DM from Jack being like, "Do you want to go on an adventure?" Which is ominous. And because he couldn't tell me anything more, and eventually he was like, "It involves going to Switzerland." So naturally my ears pricked up. And essentially I was like, "Yeah, screw it, why not? Let's do it." So then when I was finally sort of signed on and figured out what it was this agency that was making these commercials for the FIFAe Next Gen World Cup featuring Football Manager. I think that was the name of it. It's a long one. They really do need to work on that.
Yeah.
And so literally the next day, we're both on a plane to Switzerland. And I sat in a toilet in FIFA's HQ, literally in the basement of FIFA in Zurich, filmed on a toilet, which was for about an hour. It was the hottest thing alive because it's in a basement and it's a toilet cubicle. And I'm just sat there sweating with my pants around my ankles with a laptop on my lap while all these German people are speaking German at me. It was great.
You've just described Dude's 3 poos today.
I was going to say, that sounds like my Saturday night.
You could have been there. You could have been in the store next door for all I know.
Maybe. You never know.
And so, then we literally flew back the same day. I was there for maybe 6 hours.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, that was really, really fun. And obviously the adverts came out and people thought they were fun and all that. And then I thought that was the end of it. I was going to maybe do some consulting stuff with FIFAe about the tournament. I thought that was really, really cool. And then I get a DM from Aaron being like, "Hey, I don't know if you're up for this, but I'm representing England in the FIFAe World Cup tournament and they need an assistant manager. Would you like to do it?" And at the time I thought I wasn't allowed to because I thought I was still doing stuff for FIFAe, but that just kind of fizzled out. So I was like, screw it. This sounds way more fun. Let me get into this England game stuff. And then, I was signed on as England's assistant. Obviously, I then learned that Jack and Tom were also competing as part of like a double team for England. And then it just kind of was this roller coaster from there, from like going down to Wembley to do all these like promotional stuff, taking all these photos and meeting loads of cool people down there. And then all of a sudden it was like, right, now you're off to Liverpool in like 3 days, hop on a train, and then you're representing England. And there's like a team of people around you. It's the weirdest thing, but it's unbelievably cool. The whole event was the most professional thing I've ever been involved in, honestly. It was so smoothly run, so brilliantly made. Right? Oh, of course, yeah, close.
Let me
the
ask
production value alone.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. You mentioned about representing England. Now, I don't think people at home fully understand that you have represented England in a sport.
Yeah, it actually counts as well. I checked.
Amazing.
Like, he's got this is it literally is. I've been told.
Yeah.
So if Malta want to call you up for a World Cup, you can't now. You're locked
not anymore.
to England.
It wasn't even a friendly tournament.
Fuming.
But no, it's legit. It was run through the FA, as in we were representing England esports, basically, which is England's E-Lions, they call it.
Yeah.
And that is run through the FA, through England. Everything has to be signed off by them. That is official. We were literally representing England. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever done.
That's quality. That is quality.
So
Now,
cool.
I can't even think of a word. Like, that is just amazing. The fact that, like, you think you're just. I was trying to explain it to a few lads at work. So obviously it's gone round. Some of the lads at work, and they were chatting to me, knowing obviously what I do and or try to do sometimes. And they were like, "Oh, so it's just like a little kind of, like a little tournament." I was like, "No, they're literally representing England, and this is them in the England kit and all this, and it is proper. Like it, you may think it's very serious, very professional. It's like top of the, and it's just like when you actually cut it back and talk to yourself about it, it's just mental how deep it is." So if you don't mind, can you give us a little run through the format, because I'm sure Dave hasn't watched it, and like how the teams were picked and how
Dave
they were
doesn't
allocated?
even know who Matt is at this stage.
For what it's worth, I watched the first leg of the semi-final, but I had no clue what I was watching, what the team was made up of, and that was it. I was just watching Leluja and Benji sat with
Basically
Spencer
what
Owen
happens when
and-
Dave plays FM, to be honest.
Yeah. Literally, I don't know. Just click a few buttons, click my space bar a few times and ask assistant. Yeah.
That's all you got to do. So that's
Yeah,
how we
exactly.
got there, after all.
Yeah.
That's what RDF did, isn't it?
Oh, he wasn't. There was some banging on that space bar. It's bowed in the middle now. It was great. It was a very long. So basically, it was split over. We went up on Tuesday. Wednesday there was like photo stuff, and then on Wednesday evening we got like this mini preseason session. So essentially, there were 19 nations, 20 teams. Obviously, England had 2 teams. And then they were drawn into 4 different groups. Each group had a club. The group I was in was Dinamo Zagreb, but there was also Sporting, Brighton, and Yokohama F. Marinos. And there was 5 teams in each group. And essentially, all of you in that group had to manage the same team over a 3-season period. And each season was kind of treated as like a match day. So you were judged on points for each season. There's some, I can get hold of the point scoring graphs for you, because there's actually a WhatsApp group that has them all in. So if you want them, I can get hold of them. But essentially what it is you were given points on things like winning the league, your league position beyond that. So it would like a sliding scale, winning the cup. So that was 5 points. Every round progression of a national cup was another 2 points. Qualifying for rounds of the Champions League and so on and so forth. That was 5 points for each round, and then 15 if you managed to win it. Europa League, it was scaled down to like 3 points, and in Conference League it was 2. And then there was also daily challenges. So things like, for example, our first daily challenge was we had to beat our main rival, Hajduk Split, 3 out of 4 times in the league in the first season, and each day that changed. And every day your points were added up, and then there was like scoreboards, and then the winner of that group over the 3 days was put through to the final 4. And they also have some extra prize where they get to like go and do some work with the club that we're in the group with them as well, which is really, really cool. And so obviously Aaron and I managed to get to the Champions League final on the 3rd day in the 3rd season with Dinamo Zagreb, which was genuinely wild, because I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in any of the saves I've ever done. So to get to, and we lost in extra time against PSG. We damn near won the Champions League in the 3rd season, which was crazy. And that's all down to Aaron's incredible tactics. So that put us through to the final day. And South Africa won their group with Brighton. Germany won the group with Yokohama. And it was Indonesia, of course, that won the group that had Sporting, which was also Jack and Tom's group. And then on the final day, it was a complete switch of format. So in the morning, we did a draft mode. We did a big draft where there was a huge draft pool, but it was very specific. So I believe it was some basic nations, and then every nation that had been knocked out of the tournament so far, their leagues were also put into there and able to be drafted from, which was interesting, because I think some of them weren't even licensed leagues. They may have even been custom databases, potentially. I'm not entirely sure, because I don't think Lithuania is playable from the base leagues.
No.
But we could definitely draft players from there. So we had to pick that with a budget of, I think, 220 million. So not a stupidly big budget, but not a small one either. And then we were drawn into against each other and played in the live stage in front of a live studio audience, as well as the main audience. There was like about 300 people in the live audience in the room, along with the 25,000, I think, across the different platforms in the live audience, which was utterly mental. And obviously Aaron and I didn't quite manage to make it through to the full one, but we still came technically, I suppose, 3rd, because there wasn't a playoff round, which is pretty good going. But I mean, it was just incredible experience, frankly, just incredible.
Just on the seasons, sorry Dave, I think I jumped ahead of you.
That's all right.
Like you had it was like a season per day. How did you get through a season per day? What kind of modes?
Mad needs to know, man. Mad needs to know.
I need to know. I'm so slow, man. I do about 3 seasons in a year.
Yeah, we had to sort of essentially triage it and find ways to essentially. It was almost like you were sort of speed running the game. So every sort of what you might consider like elite level trick. So with your 9.5-year installments, 50% sell-on fees on both sides of contracts to exploit every possible thing you could to get maximum advantage in that period. But one of the ways we were doing it is because we could build a super team so fast with Dynamo, we were essentially holidaying through matches in the league pretty much from like the start of season 2. So that saved us a lot of time. So we could just focus only on Champions League matches, but we had 9 hours over the course of the day to do it. So it was 3-hour session, 1-hour break, 3-hour session, 1-hour break. And then the second day, there was a slight tweak in the rules because some of the other groups had more games than we did. So for example, Brighton were having to play like 55 games a season, which you just couldn't do. So they made a switch up where they gave you an 11-hour window basically and said you can sort of take breaks as and when you please within that. So you didn't have to take any if you didn't want to, but they would heavily encourage you to. So you basically had 11 hours in which to complete a season, and it involved a lot of holidaying and sort of speed running and keyboard smashing and just trying to be as fast as physically possible. So it tested your time management skills as well as your ability to play the game, basically.
Yeah, because if you ran out of time, like
they would just holiday to the end of the season for you, and you had no control over it if that was what would happen.
Oh,
no, yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
a whole different dynamic. That's mad.
Was there anyone there, Matt? Like, obviously, I don't know the quality of some of the lads that qualified, and I'm sure they got there on merit. But was there anyone there that anyone at any point thought, how are these like lads here? Like they are rubbish.
Yo,
FM.
leave work the space out of this,
No.
mate.
because I suspect they thought about us.
No, like obviously, I know like there's some good. Obviously, I'd assume everyone's there and they know tricks and stuff.
The quality
But, like I've been
very
looking at
good.
it, it's like, mate, what is this guy doing? Was there anyone that was like, you don't need to mention names. Was there anyone that was like really poor?
I wouldn't say that it was really poor. Like at the end of the day, everyone got there for various reasons. Because some like federations did open qualifiers. So Indonesia had over 100 people in open qualifiers,
Wow.
which they then pitted against each other and whittled it down, and they won the whole thing. So clearly that worked for them. Whereas England basically selected based on what they thought would be good for the tournament. So they tried to get people that they thought would be good at FM, but also would hopefully be able to be good in front of the cameras too, knowing the pressure that would be on the event, which is why they went for content creators instead, or at least approach content creators as the main managers. And it just so happens that they then, of course, picked other content creators as the assistants, because I suppose that was likely to happen anyway, just because we're all sort of friends with each other. It kind of just goes like that. But and some did a balance. Some Germany, I think, had open qualifiers, but then had an incredible data scientist genius as their main manager, and also had Zweierketter as their assistant, who of course is a big German content creator. Hilarious dude. So yeah, I think some people, it was some strength was more than others, because it wasn't like all the nations were in already. There wasn't any nations that like failed to qualify for it. If you wanted to be in it, I think you could, and that was pretty much how it went. So you could definitely see that there were some areas where perhaps people were quite inexperienced and perhaps didn't know these sort of high level, not even high level tricks, but you know the sort of stuff I'm talking about, the 9-year installments, all that kind of stuff. And I think it did put some people quite behind quite quickly, and they were almost unable to recover from that because they perhaps weren't expecting it to be played at that kind of level. Whereas I think perhaps they thought it was more so, we're going to go for a realistic type of save. But at the end of the day, if you don't do that kind of stuff, you're just going to lose. We just had to dive balls straight deep into that kind of stuff and get stuck in. The sort of things you feel dirty doing in your normal save, but here you've got no choice.
It's very similar to like when the Streamer Showdown first became about, how like people were just like, some of us were just there to have fun and have a laugh. And then you're coming up against people that are taking it very seriously, doing their look, not the exploits as such, but the OP-ness. And it's like, that's where you kind of get caught out and get in the bottom three times out of 5. But you did a really good entrance, so who cares, Hey, I won a league one, so that's all that matters for me.
You got a smoke machine in the back, but it doesn't matter.
Kids are crying, smoke alarms going off, but I got 4 points against Curty, so who's the real winner?
On that note as well, with the showdown, Matt, because like obviously in the showdowns of years gone by, you'd have a lot of prep time for like drafts, and we'd announced, or we'd say this is what your budget's going to be, or these are the leagues you come. Did you come in on the day of the draft, the first draft you did for the, let's say after the group stages, no idea whether you're even doing a draft, therefore no idea what your budget is, no prep, did you just sit down and start drafting?
Not quite, but basically we knew there was going to be a draft because we knew the format would split for the live days. So that we were aware of, but obviously that can mean anything. So once we'd got through, and obviously because Aaron and I finished 2 hours early that day because we had that final to play, and we knew that basically we were going to think about like holding off, but we decided, no, we're going to finish 2 hours early, get that done and put the pressure on the other teams, because that way all the cameras would be focused on them and not us. We could just go have a drink. And
nice.
Later that day, after they'd done the post-match press conference and stuff, which was obviously a huge deal with these brilliant sort of almost like role playing as managers that are like in the purest form, which were the most fun you could imagine, where you get the whole audience. It was amazing. I'd highly encourage people to watch those. They're so fun. But they then basically took us aside and did a briefing with us, which was probably about 9:30 at night the day before. So we were still at the arena and just really wanted to go get some food. And they took us aside and basically did a sort of 20-minute briefing where they were running through like the draft pool, but admittedly it was on like a laptop screen, so you couldn't really see it because there was about 16, 17 leagues that were switched on. So there was that, and then they ran through a few of the rules for it. But really, the prep time was from essentially 10 o'clock at night the night before to us getting to the arena at 8 a.m. the next day. And I think some of the other teams did do quite a lot of prep, but I think Aaron and I just decided that actually the best bet here would be to catch up on some sleep, get our minds fresh, go for some pizza or something, come back fresh the next day, and then just basically do a little bit of notes, because there's only so much prep you can really do for the drafts. We knew the budget. We had a look. Aaron had a look in the editor and had a look at some players, but we had a couple of players on his phone. But the rest of the draft prep that we did was pretty much done, not even on the fly, because you did get a little bit of prep period, but it was maybe 10, 15 minutes at top, sat on the stage on the computers, just looking through some different options. But we figured that at the end of the day, with the way that we've done drafting before in showdowns, we have enough experience doing it that we felt we'd probably be able to get a pretty competent squad. There wasn't going to be any glaring holes that we were likely to be missing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always, it must be easier when there's two of you as well. So it was quite interesting that, you know, you being the assistant to RDF. What was the dynamic like? What was, you know, was he listening to some of your kind of tactical? Well, in Malta, I did this, or was he just kind of doing his thing?
It's a tough one, because obviously as the assistant, like, you are there to assist, and so I'd kind of committed fully to that role. It was kind of like, whatever you need, I'm there, right?
Yeah.
And you know, Aaron and I obviously met before, just like I've met all of you, but we weren't like super close, but we've become very close over the last few days, because when you're spending 11 to 14 hours a day with the same person, you either get very, very close with them, or you grow to hate each other. Luckily, it was the very, very close version of that. And I think it's great because he sort of brought me out of my shell a little bit. Not that I'm particularly introverted, but in that kind of environment when there's hundreds of people around you, you do get a little bit, you know, a bit sort of shy in many ways. But then as the week grew on, he just brought me out of that. But as for the tactical side of things, I'm not anywhere near as good at tactics as he is. I mean, he's RDF tactics, I'm not. And I knew that he would
get yellow cards.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just here for the discipline. He just cooks up these magical approaches and manages to make all these incredible changes in the middle of games that my brain simply cannot comprehend what or why he's doing it. But then I see the result and it's like, well, that's why you're doing it. The only thing I was able to sort of really contribute to that kind of stuff was more to do with things like the contractual side of things and transfers, and finding those exploits, those ridiculously like pernickety ways of negotiating deals that would be really beneficial for us in the long run, to backdate all of these fees so we wouldn't have to pay any of them during the actual save that we were doing. It was all like 9 years in the future. Players
so
with
cheating.
all these strange contracts. Yeah, cheating, exactly. Yeah. Cheating
What
was
it's all
allowed.
about bloody cheating.
Yeah, indeed. And so did everybody else. And then we, of course, it was things like one of the few things was the fresh legs thing, which became a bit of a meme over the course of the 3 days, which was that I'd be sat there about 75 minutes and Aaron just doesn't make substitutes sometimes. He just won't. And that's just his style of play. But I'm just like, I can't imagine that being a thing where I wouldn't make substitutes. So I'm just sat there like fresh legs. And then the chat start repeating it. And essentially, we then came to this conclusion that, right, he was like, okay, clearly this is going to work, because he did it a few times and it worked really well for us, because he would then take a chance to make a tactical switch while he was doing it. So we had the fresh legs and the tactical switch, and we just started winning. And then, which was brilliant, but it wasn't all down to the fresh legs. It was the tactical switches really that was doing it. It just allowed us to exercise that. It was all down to him. And then it was basically, we just decided it was going to be the code word. So I would just get to about 75 minutes and I'd just go, fresh legs. And he'd be like, right, got it. And then we just started doing that. So I think that was my main contribution, was substitution.
Love it. No, I think that's great. I think it's awesome. Just really quickly, Matt, who would you, if you were invited to represent Ireland, who would you pick as your assistant manager? Anyone. Doesn't have to be.
It's got to be Irish, yeah, surely.
No. Okay, you represent England.
Joe's got an Irish granddad, I reckon.
Yeah. Who would you pick, Matt?
I mean, if there's cameras on us, I'd have to bring Joe, because he'd fucking kill me. You know, Matt just said him and RDF got on great, thank God. Me and Joe would have me killed by day one, I'd say. So I think just for the value and the entertainment, I think I'd have to bring Joe for that reason.
Dave?
You like me too much.
I'd probably say Joe as well.
Yeah, I think I'd probably say Joe. Because
to be fair, with this though, like, obviously I knew RDF was good at the game, but I've never actually, again, as you probably know, I've never actually consumed. I don't think I've consumed much FN content at all over the last 2 or 3 years. But like stuff like this is certainly making me open my eyes a little bit more and thinking, right, I need to sit down and watch a bit more content. Like next year, if I want to take my tactical side to the next level. I remember I sat down with Joe once for an hour, and he looked at my team, and he's like, right, do this to your tactic. And he made the craziest tactic, and I won the Champions League the year after. And I was there like, how do people do this?
The thing is, what a lot of people don't, like, really quickly, but a lot of people don't do is they don't think about, it sounds ridiculous, but they look to find what it will look like on a screen that will work and it will be balanced, and you think, oh, that would work, but actually doesn't think about it in game. I'm massive for it. Like, I don't think about it in game, and I try to go, I'm going to do it different every time, but then I bloody
things that should actually in theory actually work in real life, but sometimes in a match engine it doesn't kind of work. It just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay, so apart from the pizza before the draft, what was your highlight of the tournament?
Probably randomly, there was one day when it was really, really stressful, and some stuff was going a little bit wrong with some of the rulings and things with the referees of the game. It was just one of those things, some controversies. And we were a little bit upset basically about that. So we decided to take a little bit of a break. And we're sat up there on the players' lounge on the balcony, just having a smoke, having a drink, not an alcoholic drink, just water. And then who should come up to us but Tom FM, of course, our England teammate. And he then guides us through a 10-minute guided meditation session, just out on the roof balcony, just like, focus on the breath. Focus on the breath. And then I got
Are you serious? Yep,
literally.
Tom
promise.
FM.
Promise. I got my phone out because I was looking at the
Same
scores of
Tom
the Bournemouth
FM who plays his guitar on his bed during the showdown and loses his mind.
That's the one. Yep. Just guided meditation for 10 minutes, calmed us completely both down, and it worked perfectly. It was the most surreal experience ever.
Amazing.
It's got to be though, Matt. I've seen obviously videos and pictures of Big Sam and John Terry there. I mean, beforehand, did you know people like that were going to be there? Well, I reckon, so from Zurich to Liverpool, was that all in the space of like 5 or 6 days then?
No. So I went to Zurich in June. So it was quite a long gap between that. So this was happening, and Aaron, I think, approached me early August about this. So there was a bit of a gap in between. So I kind of thought I was one and done with that whole thing, and I was like, I didn't expect there to be content creators in the tournament at all. I thought it was just going to be pure open qualifiers or whatever. But I've now learned that that's just not how England do things. But yeah, as for JT and like Sam and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank as well,
JT, look at that,
we knew
love
people
it.
were going to be. He's met me
early, actually.
But we knew that people were coming. We just didn't know who. And then slowly it sort of got leaked. So one person finds out that the rumor goes around. But it was just strange. Like, you'd just be sat there, and then all of a sudden, our England reps come up with John Terry. And the thing is, absolutely lovely. Like, he was absolutely lovely the entire time. He really was very engaged with it. Whether that came across or not, I don't know. But he did a lot more than he needed to. He was far more engaged and interested in what we were doing than he really had to be, which I thought was actually incredibly impressive. I didn't really get a chance to meet Sam as much, other than randomly bumping into him at the catering table on the last day when Aaron and I were getting a drink in between our games.
Did he have a napkin on his head? That's all I want to know.
Pint of wine.
Did anyone take their partners?
I don't know if they were serving those.
Anyone take their partners? Or
well, my missus turned up on the weekend as well. So she met John Terry too.
This is
no
fine.
comment.
Well, that brings episode 3. Okay, I've only got a couple quick questions for you. I just want to know, apart from obviously RDF being a genius, what's your biggest learning or takeaway apart from the pizza from the weekend
and the meditation?
Weirdly, it's not even to do with FM. It's just about saying yes to stuff. I've been quite a shy and anxious person for most of my life, and particularly this year has been a bit weird. And then I just kind of had this like epiphany of just start saying yes to things. So when Jack says, do you want to go on an adventure? Yeah, of course I do, mate. When Aaron says, do you want to come represent England with me? Yeah, of course I do, mate. It's kind of like this sort of feel the fear and do it anyway kind of approach. And yeah, I'm just trying to do more of that sort of stuff. So I learned a lot about myself through that over this time, even if it wasn't FM related,
Do you know what? I love it. And I think I think that's been my attitude since COVID. I remember being sat in my office talking to the boys, the pod boys, doing our social stuff, and at the end, we'd always sit there and go, oh, when it's all over, we need to get together more, we need to do this more. We've got together a lot more. I go see Joe quite a lot, and I think it's not a bad thing to say. It's so easy to say no, and it is actually a lot harder to say yes, but actually a lot better stuff comes from those that say yes than those that say no, right? So
you rarely regret it. It's usually a nice experience. Every now and then it's perhaps going to be a negative one, but I don't think that outweighs the positive experiences you have, because it's all memories at the end of the day. You're making memories with your friends and the people you love,
absolutely.
right?
Imagine you said no to either the Zurich thing and then said no to RDF, and then you're at home.
And you'd have to see me sat there on a toilet.
Yeah. No, look, but that you would be kicking. He would, like, regardless, you'd be kicking yourself.
Sure.
You?
Yeah, because it's like, just from a career standpoint, it's like that stuff for the CV. You know, doing adverts with that, having competed for England. It's things you've now done that no one can take away from you, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I know it's easy
Unless
to say now.
they catch you as a drug cheat, they'll strip that off you.
True.
But
Well, I mean, there's a funny story about that as well.
I did read somewhere about that. Actually,
Read about the drug testing,
yeah.
Wait,
So was
what?
that? We don't need to do names because we don't want to spoil it. He might come on the pod later.
Yeah.
So, but was that something that was kind of just a random thing, or did he just kind of go, "Yeah, he looks like one of them"?
So we basically got this message in like the players management WhatsApp group being like, blah, 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 drug tests. And everyone literally was like laughing emoji responding to it because obviously we thought they were just, it's the last day, they're taking the piss a little bit. And then I spoke to our England rep and he's like, no, they're dead serious. This is a FIFA sanctioned esports event. That is what they do. They will have to do random drug testing.
Oh my God.
And someone was selected for that. But hopefully he's coming on your podcast.
Out. We can say it. He tweeted it out.
Okay.
So yeah,
so
Work the
Mr. Work
was,
Space
yeah,
was
was
randomly drug
ever.
tested. But he has a lot of stories about that.
So there you go. Work the Space is a pothead, or looks like one at least.
No.
Work the space kicks.
Allegedly.
He looks like one. He looks like one.
Okay, no, that's wrong. Work the Space. I'm going to clear your name because I've actually DM'd him about coming on the pod. So let's not upset him just yet. Let's wait. There is a title though. He's claimed himself a title, and I'm just quickly scrolling through as we talk. About him being the first ever. Here you go. This is it. He was the first professional football manager player in history to be drug tested by FIFA's anti-doping unit mid-tournament.
He didn't even say if he passed or failed.
I am going to be honest with you.
Put that in the trophy cabinet.
I was going to say, and you'll never sing that. I'll be honest with you. I hope that's like the top line on his CV. If he ever decides he doesn't want to do videos anymore and he wants to go work at Asda or something, that's the top line of his CV.
Is that all he's capable of, Asda? Yeah.
Probably a Waitrose, to be fair. He's quite a nice lad. Matt, honestly, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think Dave's realised that he should have watched it, to be fair. But if other people, this is brand new information to them, want to find out some more information or relive the action, there's going to be links that Matt's going to provide us down in the description to where we can find all of that. Yeah? Happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Super. Matt, you got a quiz or are we bombing that off this week? Actually, Matt, would you like a quiz or would you like not to?
I never say no to a quiz.
He says yes to everything, so...
Yeah, exactly. If I said no now, I'd be a bit massive a hypocrite, wouldn't I?
Imagine that. Yeah. Well, at least we know what the pod's going to be called. It's going to be
the
the
real
yes
one
man.
or not?
I didn't do one for him because I knew he was only on a train yesterday coming back from the thing. I thought the poor guy would just be exhausted. I thought we quizzed him enough.
You'll have to come on.
I did want to ask you. I did want to ask you one question though, because obviously we have a lot of we've all this history to Streamer Showdown.
Is this a quiz question or is this just your question?
It's just a question for Matt. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I get it wrong?
Has that tournament format sounds very new in terms of like the collation of all the different ways of playing and draft and career mode and everything. Like, has it completely changed your perception of FM as an esport? Because for a long time, if you were to ask most people in and around the community, they'd say, well, FM isn't and can never be an esport because of whatever, like hacks and exploits and just how it works. Has it changed now your view on FM's ability as an esport going forward?
Oh, for sure. I feel like I was one of the doubters as to whether FM could be an esport. And the thing is, I think you just sort of have to accept that those hacks and exploits then just become part of the esport, I suppose. I don't know if any of you are familiar with things like Rocket League, but there are things in that game that essentially just abuse the physics system, but they then became part of the skill ceiling because you realize that you could reset flips on the ball. And it's just things like that. So I think when you sort of embrace the fact that all this stuff is essentially just going to be part of it, you then just have to find those little minute ways to gain marginal gains about it. And I think it actually made it quite fun.
I love the idea that you didn't just turn up and do one big giant draft. Which when it was first announced it was going to be, I could just that was all I could envision. Like, obviously there's more creative people out there than me, but I just sat there going, well, how are they going to do this? Surely it's got to be like almost like the showdown, for example. That was the only kind of thing I had as a reference point. To use the clubs and the free seat, it's just such a wonderful idea. And it is really much, I'm assuming it's the exact same save file that you've all got. So you start exactly the same point, and that's the fairest way to do it. And yes, there's gonna be some things that don't go your way, but that's FM, and people know that. You know, it's a phrase. I got FM'd. You know, Mad gets FM'd all the time, all season long. And he doesn't moan about it at all.
I think, like, obviously I was aware that you were managing different clubs and so on, but didn't know all the ins and outs. So I think it's a great idea, because I think that was a major concern for people. Like you said, Doob, I think people thought, esport or FM esport is just going to be a massive draft. I think that's probably the most what everybody thought. But I think the way that they've done this is so clever, especially with like the way to gain points and stuff like that. I love that. So this is probably the start, Matt, of something much bigger. Do you reckon? How have they said so. Or that have they hinted that they're going to do another one, or how long it will be, or?
I don't know if it's been publicly said, but it's just the sort of thing, the opinion you get from talking to people around the event, be it organisers, people that worked there, just even things like at the after party, everything was spoken to in a kind of like, can't wait to do this next time. Okay. Next time. It was always next time. It didn't seem like there was any doubt. Precisely. It just feels like this is the big, if this could have easily been like the pinnacle of the game, but it feels like it's going to be the beginning of something that's awesome. And that's really, really exciting.
It'd be a shame if stuff like this you had to wait another 3-4 years for.
Oh yeah, I don't think it would be like that. I suspect it will
be
potentially something like that. I don't know. I've not heard anything about that, but I think it could potentially give rise to other competitions as well within that same cycle as well, because with the Premier League license now that FM has got, what's to stop them doing something like an Premier League but with FM? Yeah. Can you imagine how sick that would be?
There's an audience, there's a market, there's a player base, everything. The numbers are there.
Yeah. It'd be so cool.
Class.
As long as I get the Wolves job and not Clates again, that's all I'm saying.
I mean, I know my money's on, mate.
You've got 4 years to get ready for the drug test stage.
And on that bombshell, I'm pleased to tell you that Clates is on next week. But no, I mean, if we've got no quiz because Mads let us down again, that does actually bring episode 369 to a close. You can find the links for each of us in the description below, or by visiting 5starpotential.com, where you can find all of our latest Football Manager content. 5-Star Potential is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and most other popular podcast apps and platforms with a new podcast release every single week. Thank you all for listening. There'll be more from some of us next week. Say goodbye, folks.
Goodbye, folks.
Goodbye, folks. Cheers, Matt.
Goodbye.